I'm back again. This is the 5th video in the series of the top 5 greatest players in each NBA franchise's history. Now we're on to number 5, the Chicago Bulls. And then after that, we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's when it starts to get interesting. And the reason why is because I'm doing this under the condition that each player can only be used once throughout the entire series. So LeBron James can only be used once. Shaq can only be used once. Tracy McGrady can only be used once. That's going to get a little more interesting as we go along with this. But with that being said, let's start it off. Top 5 greatest Chicago Bulls of all time. But first, going to do a few honorable mentions for this one. I'm going to start off with a guy some of you guys may not really know. If you played NBA 2K, my eras, you might know him a little bit. If you started in the Bird Johnson era, that's Reggie Theus. Now, Reggie Theus himself, during his tenure with the Chicago Bulls, he was a 2-time All-Star. He was on the All-Rookie team. He did average 20 points a game during his tenure with the Bulls. And he did play a role in them making the playoffs once. He was one of the better players of the pre-Jordan era. Not one of the great players in Bulls history, but he was a good player during his time. He's at least worth a mention. Next one is Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, he's been a good player for the Bulls, but he hasn't really done enough to get them to that next level. He's made the All-Star team twice. They've had a couple playoff pushes, but never really did anything spectacular. So, a good player, but not one of those all-time greats for the Bulls. And then last one I'm going to go with is Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah, you remember him. He was there from 2007 to about 2015-ish. He made 2 All-Star teams. He was a good role player, especially in the prime Derrick Rose years. Not a great player, not the guy you'd build a team around, but a solid player, at least worth an honorable mention. Now, with that being said, now let's get into the top 5 greatest Bulls of all time. Here's an old school player from the old ABA days into the early NBA years after the ABA-NBA merger. That's Artis Gilmore. He had 5 seasons with the Bulls after the merger. For those of you that don't know, he was an ABA champion in 75, was it? To look it up. He was also the ABA MVP before the league folded and it merged with the NBA. During his first 5 seasons in the NBA, he spent them with the Chicago Bulls. In those 5 seasons, he made 4 All-Star appearances. He did average 19 a game, about 11 rebounds per game during those 5 seasons, and he helped them make a run, 76-77 to the playoffs when they fell short against the eventual NBA champion Portland Trailblazers, led by Bill Walton. But yeah, he's certainly worthy of a mention. A lot of people, modern fans, wouldn't recognize him, but if you do your research, Artis Gilmore was a key player in the Bulls' history pre-Jordan. Now, from here, we go on from the Jordan era to present. Number 4, we're going with Horace Grant. Horace Grant wasn't the greatest player, but he did play a role in the Bulls' first three-peat. Rodman primarily played a role in the Bulls' second three-peat. Horace Grant played a role in the first three-peat. He was a consistent offensive player. He averaged about 12 to 15 points per game. Then during that one season where Michael Jordan was either retired or suspended for gambling, whichever one you want to believe, during Horace Grant's final season with the Bulls, he stepped up his production over 20 points a game and helped the Bulls reach the playoffs without Jordan. And we know we talk now about the rocky relationship that him and Michael Jordan had. It's a bit of a shame for them. It didn't really work out, but it still all worked out best for the Bulls. And even Horace Grant, who after his tenure with the Bulls got to play with the Orlando Magic and then the Lakers as a role player, but his best years individually came during that first three-peat as a member of the Chicago Bulls. That's why I have him on here. Number 3, it was a short-lived great run, but it was a great run. That's Derrick Rose, the number 1 pick in the 2008 NBA draft out of Memphis. He came in, took the league by storm. It's kind of a for Bulls fans, watch this. I'm sure this is a bittersweet subject for you because it was great to have Derrick Rose's prime, but there's that big what could have been. But prior to that major injury in 2012 in the opening round when the Bulls played my Sixers, Derrick Rose took the league by storm. Like I said, youngest MVP, multi-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year. And for that brief period of time, the Chicago Bulls were contenders in the East, and it looked like they were going to be back in championship mix. But yeah, even though it was short-lived and it's kind of a disappointment it didn't last longer, for the time it lasted, Derrick Rose was that it factor for the Chicago Bulls. He was the MVP. He's the guy that will always be revealed as a hero in Chicago. Now we get on to 2-1. Number 2, Scottie Pippen. 7-time All-Star during his time, the second most valuable guy in the Bulls dynasty through the 90s. He was, alongside Michael Jordan, he was there for the three-peats. Scottie played a vital role in that Bulls' success throughout both three-peats, along with MJ. Now, we know the relationship in recent years has deteriorated between them, but this is not the time to discuss that. The bottom line is, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, during their years playing together, played well with each other. It was to some degree a codependent relationship, I feel, Jordan leading the way, but Scottie played a role in that too. And he certainly played a role in those three-peats. And on the offensive side of the ball, he was usually averaging over 20. And like I said, he was the number 2 guy that helped keep that team rolling, helped that dynasty be what it was. Made the Bulls the greatest show in sports in the 90s. And that, let's say, ties into number 1. Do I even need to say it? Okay, 6-time NBA champion, 6-time Finals MVP, 12-time All-Star with the Bulls, 5-time League MVP, all with the Chicago Bulls. Has his own shoes, has his own brand named after him. You guys know who I'm talking about. He was drafted the 3rd pick of the 1984 NBA draft out of North Carolina. He took the league by storm his rookie season. He's considered the NBA GOAT. That is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. I mean, I could go on and on about the list of accomplishments, but that's another subject for another time. And there are plenty of videos talking about that. But, yeah, obviously it's Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the greatest Chicago Bull of all time, the guy that a lot of people that grew up in the 80s and 90s think about first when it comes to basketball. Even people who didn't actually get to see, who either got to see Michael Jordan late with the Wizards or have seen highlights, still consider him the GOAT. And easily, without a shadow of a doubt, the greatest Chicago Bull of all time. That's my list there. If you guys want to comment, let me know your list, who your top 5 are. Feel free to do so in the comments. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Coming up next, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers, so stay tuned.